Okay, welcome back to part 22. This is a series of videos on elementary logic for first year BA LLB from Mumbai University. So in the last video, I spoke about eduction and other immediate inferences. In that we covered conversion, obversion and obverted converse. Now in this video, we will look at contrapositive, the partial and the full type. In the contrapositive of a proposition, the proposition, what we are trying to do is we are logically transforming it into another proposition having the same meaning. So the contrapositive of a proposition is a logical transformation that involves reversing and negating both the subject and the predicate terms. In the context of categorical propositions, the contrapositive can be categorized as either partial or full, depending on whether one or both the terms are negated. I'll explain this. Stay with me. Let's continue. You'll understand as we move forward. Let's explore the contrapositives for each of the four types of proposition A, E, I, and O in detail, with the focus on partial and full contrapositives. Now, if you have not watched the earlier videos in the series, I recommend that you go through that before coming on this. Otherwise, you will not understand this until and unless you have already done some kind of homework, background work on the logical, elementary logic subject. So let's look at how contrapositive of E proposition works. If the original form is no S is P, this is, of course, we all know that this is a E proposition. This is a E proposition. Now we want a contrapositive of that. So a full contrapositive would be no non-P is non-S. Now let us come back to the definition here so we'll understand better. The contrapositive of a proposition, this is the proposition, and this is the contrapositive. So the contrapositive of a proposition is a logical transformation. So you can see that this has been transformed, that involves reversing and negating both the subject and the predicate term. So reversing. So let's take the reversing part first. So the P has become non-P and S has become non-S. So it says reversing. So first we have reversed the subject and the predicate, and then we have negated also. So P becomes non-P, S becomes non-S. So both the subject and the predicate terms are reversed and also negated. In the context of categorical proposition, the contrapositive can be categorized as either partial or full. Now this is a full contrapositive. In the partial contrapositive, only one, either the subject is negated or the predicate is negated. Now let's explore the contrapositive for each of the four types of proposition A, E, I, O in detail with a focus on partial and full contrapositives. Okay, let's continue now. So what you have to do is, first you have to reverse the subject and the predicate types, which I already explained. The predicate of the original becomes the subject of the contrapositive, and the subject becomes the predicate of the contrapositive. The subject of the original also becomes negative, predicate also becomes negative. So we have to negate both the subject and the predicate terms. I hope this is clear. Now let's look at an example. If the original is no cats are dogs, no cats are dogs, the full contrapositive of that would be no non-dogs are non-cats. no non-P is non-S. This is the standard format. In partial contrapositive, we negate only one of the terms, either the subject or the predicate. So negating the subject only, in this case what will happen is we'll write the E proposition as no non-S is P. No non-S is P. So we have negated the subject. Example, no non-cats are dogs. Negating the predicate only. No S is non-P. This is very apparent, so I don't need to explain this further. Example, no cats are non-dogs. Let's start with the A proposition. To convert the A proposition into its contrapositive, either partial or full, the steps to be followed is, first we convert the A proposition into its obverse. Alright, in short, into its obverse. Then we do converse. So A is converted to its obverse. This obverse is converted back into its converse. Now, what is the obverse of A? This we studied in the last video. The obverse of A is E, and the converse of E is again E. So this gives us partial contrapositive. Partial contrapositive. Now if we again convert this converse into its obverse, then we get full contrapositive. Now what is the obverse of E? Obverse of E is again A. Correct. So if we want to convert the A proposition into partial contrapositive, we have to convert A into first its obverse, then its converse, and we have to negate either the subject or the predicate. And then if we want to convert it further into full contrapositive, we have to negate both the predicate and the subject. So let's take one example here of how we convert. Let's take it with an example here. Let's start with the A proposition. This is contrapositive partial first. So we have A proposition. A proposition starts like this. All subjects are P. All S are P. Now, let me just increase this a little bit. Okay. All S are P. Now, the first step in contrapositive is to do its obverse, then do its converse. So we do obverse first of the A. Alright. So what will be the obverse of A? Obverse of A is E. E proposition. And what does E stand for? The obverse states, what is the rule for obverse? The rule is the subject and the predicate remains where they are. And E stands for no. So we have no SRP, but this P becomes non-P, because we have to replace it with its complement. Alright, so this becomes the E. Now we have to do converse again. The converse of E is E itself. So it will be no, and the subject and the predicate will get replaced. So no non P R S. No non P R S. That's correct. So this is how you convert a proposition into contrapositive partial. Now this is partial. Now if you want a full, you have to once again do its obverse. The obverse of E is A, and A stands for all. And for obverse, again we have to reverse. Does the subject and predicate reverse in this? No, it doesn't. It stays where it is. But what changes is the predicate's complement. The predicate is replaced by its complement. So in this case, S will become non-S. So non-P are non-S. This is full contrapositive. This is about contrapositive. So we started with A. I'll explain again. We started with A, which is all S or P. We did an obverse of that. Obverse of A is E, E proposition. E stands for no, starts with no. And in an obverse, we have to keep the subject and the predicate where they are, and also negate the predicate with its complement. So we have to complement the P predicate part. So we say non-P. Once we do this, we do a converse of this. Converse of E is, this E is E only, which is studied in the earlier video. I would recommend, if you don't, you will not understand this until you watch the entire previous videos. It's very important. You go step by step. No non-P. Now converse, again we have to replace the predicate and the subject. We have to interchange them. So no non-P, the predicate became the subject here, and the subject became the predicate. So, and nothing else changes in this, in converse. Converse is very simple. Just replace the subject and the predicate. That is, A becomes the A proposition turns to I proposition. Subject and predicate are replaced. E proposition remains in E proposition. Subject and predicate are replaced. I proposition remains in I proposition. Subject and predicate are replaced. O proposition does not work. A to O does not work. Oh, sorry, rather O proposition is not, cannot be, it's not applicable to O proposition. Now once we do the partial, we have to do the, because in the partial the rule for this is that if we have subject and predicate in partial contrapositive, we have to negate one of either the subject or the predicate. And it is also interchanged. So either the predicate is negated or the subject is negated. In partial contrapositive and in full contrapositive, both are negated. So the ultimate aim is to negate one of them, either the subject part or the predicate part, or negate both of them in full contrapositive. So this is how the contrapositive is converted, A part. Now let's move on to the E part. We'll start with E proposition. E proposition starts like no S R P. Now this we'll start with its obverse first. The obverse of E is A proposition. A proposition states all, and now we have obverse. So in obverse we don't interchange the subject and predicate, but replace the predicate with its complement. So no S R non P. Next we do converse. Converse of A is I, that we know. I starts with some, and converse we have to again replace the subject and the predicate. So some non P are S. Some non P are S. So now we have got this done. Now we have changed the predicate. We have negated the predicate here. So we have got our partial. Now to do the full contrapositive, we have to again do obverse. So the obverse of I is O, and O states some are not, and the obverse we don't have to replace the subject and the predicate. So some non P are not. Now the predicate part here will be replaced by its complement, non S. This is the full contrapositive. Go through this again. Take your time, go through this again. Next, let us move to the I proposition. I proposition states some S R P. The obverse is O proposition, which states some S are non P. Again, the rule for the obverse is, first we take the O proposition, we write some, then since we are converting it into O proposition, there will be some are not, and in obverse we have to replace the predicate with its complement. So some S are not non P. Now we convert this back into its converse. Converse of O is not applicable in this case, is it? Yes. Converse of O is not applicable. So we cannot do full as well as partial contrapositive for the I proposition. So we are stuck here, because in There's no converse of O. So this is not applicable. Alright, so we can close it here. So I does not work with contrapositive, either full or partial. Next, let's look at the O proposition. O proposition states some S are not P. Some S are not P. Let me put it in double quotes. S stands for subject, P stands for predicate. So some S are not P. Now first we do what? We do obverse, then converse, then obverse. The obverse of O is I proposition, and I states some are. So some and obverse, again the subject and the predicate doesn't change, only the predicate becomes its non-complement. Sorry, it becomes its complement. Some S are not non-P. We now do its converse. Converse of I is I only. So some, now in a converse we have to interchange the subject and the predicate. So some non-P are not S. Now we get our partial contrapositive. Some non-P let me go through this once again. So obverse is, okay, we made a mistake here. So for the I proposition it should be some S are not will go away, because now we are converting it into I proposition. So from O proposition are not, we are converting it to the I proposition, which is R. So some S are non-P, and the converse of that would be some non-P are S. Some non-P are S. So this is a I proposition. This is partial. To make it full contrapositive, we have to again do an obverse of the I, and the obverse of the I is O proposition. And obverse, we do not replace the subject and the predicate, but replace the predicate with its complement. So some non-P are non-S. This is full. I hope you got a full clarity as to how to convert any proposition type into its contrapositive, and for whether it be partial contrapositive or full contrapositive. Along with the examples that I've given, we see that for the I proposition, contrapositive is not possible. So the rule to remember here is, when doing contrapositive, we have to start with obverse, and when we are doing obverted converse, we have to start with converse. For obverted converse, we have to start with converse and then do obverse, whereas for a contrapositive, we have to start with obverse first and then do its converse. So the reverse. So obverted converse and contrapositive, they both start with different types. So in a contrapositive, it starts with obverse, and for obverted converse, it starts with converse.